India is at a very, very difficult juncture, where at the same point in time, it has people who espouse hate speech and propaganda masquerading as journalists, and you have journalists who are under threat of their life and liberty. And if somebody wants to understand it, you need to understand that are you speaking for power or are you seeking to check power? If you just look at global indices, now you may disagree with the methodology of these global indices. You may also question the basis of a global think tank doing a study in India. But what cannot be discounted is that on core metrics such as the number of journalists killed, India had a very low rank 10 years ago, and it's come to rank number 2 or 1. We have, and the union government, which is headed by the Prime Minister, a precedent in which the Prime Minister has never given a press conference, in which you have a recent celebration of 100 episodes of Mann Ki Baat, in which there's no intermediation, there is no editorial check, there is no basis to, in fact, put questions which are off script in a way, right? So what that often results in is a form of thinking in the government that quite often we are under siege, we are under attack. So the government by itself ultimately becomes a journalist in addition to being a government, where the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and the Press Information Bureau, in fact, act as the only reliable sources of information about the government. Under the Shreya Singhal judgment, Section 66A of the Information Technology Act was ruled to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, which meant that all prosecutions under it, past, present, and future, would cease to happen. A lot of prosecutions have shifted from Section 66A to Section 67. Section 67 is obscenity. And quite often, if you make a social media post which which is critical of either social values or it's on topics and themes which may invite controversy, there are risks that they may include Section 67 and argue that it's obscene. And the result of that is a FIR, a long prosecution. I think it's very important for us to consider when you think about press freedom is that where is the money coming from, right? What is the business model? And here I think a large number of very, very, very prominent television-based news outlets as well as newspapers are become diversified corporate holdings. What I mean by that is that their business is not only in the media or in journalism. They have business interests in other domains which are completely disconnected. It may be real estate, it may be power plants, it may be education, etc., etc. And a lot of that, in fact, reduces the objectivity or the courage which the corporate entity may have in fulfilling its function of journalism by itself. I would request people to take a step back and to actually think the value, the lifeblood of any democracy, any kind of community is through informed facts. And these informed facts quite often come through people who are paid, who are trained, who are supervised to collect them and to put them out in a way which is comprehensible for people like you and me. Which is why on World Press Freedom Day, I would suggest that if you do read something regularly from one website, if you notice you're visiting it every 2 weeks at 4 or 5 times, consider subscribing to them. Consider paying for the news.